heart of a bustling city. It's morning and you have just stepped off the train, and now you're walking to work. However, all of a sudden, the wind whispering in your ear goes quiet, and as you look up at the sky, a huge flash takes over, following with a deafening roar. The shockwaves hit, knocking you off your feet, tearing through the city, destroying everything you've ever known and loved. The busy morning is now quiet. You spend the next several hours with tears in your eyes as you fight against the surviving groups, filled with grief as you try to get back home. However, when you do, you are met with the image of your son, his lifeless body, laying on the lawn, still clutching his favorite red tricycle. When I heard this year's TEDx theme, innovation, at first I was stumped. I had heard the term what must have been hundreds of times, yet I had never delved into its true meaning. So, when I was researching what it was, I came across this Merriam-Webster definition: the introduction of something new. Okay, at first, I thought this checked out and made sense. However, the more I thought about it, I didn't agree. To me, innovation is a step towards societal well-being. And I feel that a common misconception we as a society have is we focus on the complexity or prestige of an invention rather than what it means ethically, or maybe what it means to us as an individual rather than us as a whole society. This phenomenon is displayed during the 1945 bombing of Hiroshima, where, as I said in the beginning of my speech, a father, Nobu Tetsunani, had experienced these negative consequences himself. This shows the duality of innovation and how it can enforce negative consequences as well. Therefore, it is important that we put positive implications onto it. And that is why we must take into consideration not only what it means for us, but what it means for us as a society. For example, the bombing had created many vast consequences for many individuals that is often overlooked. The story that I told at the beginning, if you can imagine, is just a microscopic view of what occurred in Hiroshima that day, when in actuality there were millions of individuals who were affected, whose stories remain untold, and who still feel these consequences today. Not only were millions died on impact, but the surviving groups have now continued to face long-term health degradations, including cancer, genetic mutations, and even psychological traumas. One that didn't just affect them, but they also passed down through generations. So children, grandchildren, and etc. That is why it is so important to look at innovation and be able to differentiate whether it is good or bad. And that is also why this statistic is so scary and important that we do not follow. Because today, I do not want you leaving here thinking that innovation is a scary thing that looms over us all, when in actuality, real innovation is a true gift. Because innovation is almost like a double-edged sword, one that puts full power and responsibility into who yields its hilt. So while some may have pulled the trigger and led to negative consequences, there were also some who decided to carve their own path towards positive reinforcement of innovation. For example, Dwight Eisenhower, the 34th President of the United States, who founded the Atoms for Peace program post-World War II. This program was meant to foster positive nuclear energy use, so something that would push forward society rather than detain it. For example, he placed and started the production of multiple nuclear energy power plants along the globe. And even today, it is still a main use of energy for a variety of different countries, and it also leaves a very small carbon footprint. Another thing he implemented into his program was nuclear use in medical applications. For example, they found that nuclear use could be used towards creating radioactive imaging medical appliances, which helped with many diseases, including cancer. They also experimented with nuclear use in an agricultural setting, where they found that radiation could be used to put into crops, to create drought-resistant crops that are still used today in countries like Kenya and Egypt. And today, the idea that innovation is a dual-sided thing is such an important thought, because with the shift in technology, in artificial intelligence, it is just like nuclear energy. It holds such immense power that can be used positively or negatively based on the ethical implications that are put forth. For example, just like nuclear energy, it can be used in a medical environment to create new imaging techniques and early diagnosis and treatment plans of a variety of different diseases like Alzheimer's, cancer, and diabetes. Also, AI was heavily used to create the COVID-19 vaccine, which has, as you guys know, saved millions and stopped a worldwide pandemic. AI can also be used in a farming perspective as well, because it is great at analyzing data and finding the best way to create a higher yield of crops, which is so important given that the World Food Program have just came out with the prediction that if current trends continue, by 2050, 2 billion people could be affected by food security. However, again, like nuclear energy, there are always two sides to a potential innovation, where depending on ethical implications, it could easily turn south. For example, AI can be used. If AI is misused, it can lead to erosions of privacy, creating manipulation, or maybe potential identity theft. And though this is a little bit of a stretch now, I want you to imagine the potential for autonomous weaponry, where a battlefield was not controlled by soldiers, but instead driven by heartless AIs. And today, you may be wondering what this has to do with all of you. However, it is not the technology itself that holds the power towards innovation. It is the human implications that are put onto it. For example, every day you are called on if you want to degrade or move forward innovation. Like, it could be something small, an everyday choice for which websites you want to support, or maybe how you utilize technology in your daily life. And, for example, you may have noticed that the first 3 images of my slideshow were created by an AI. I believe that a big concern about AI, especially in an educational field, is that it is going to rid of human curiosity and human creativity. However, I think that a way to fix this is to, instead of copy-pasting essays and taking from ChatGPT's knowledge, you can use AI to build on what you already have. By me using those images in those slideshows, I had created the idea, but I used AI to promote myself and to further support my point. That is an example of how I can turn an everyday task into supporting innovation. I also wanted to include some other opportunities for you to get involved with helping foster positive innovation that are more than just little everyday tasks. For example, you could join a variety of organizations, some including the Center for Humane Technology, or maybe the Future of Life Institute, which works on using technology and fostering it in a humanitarian view to create progress. Or maybe you could interact with your community, host local tech meetups, or create ethical reviews of workplaces, or simply just tell them what I have told you today and relay the knowledge to your peers. Whatever you do, I want you to realize that there is power inside of all of us and that we have the potential to move society forward. I wish for you to think about this question when you're going home today. What will I do with the power that I constantly have? Will I either pull the trigger and watch as bombs fill the world, creating a place of anguish and fire? Or will I channel that same energy into lighting my path forward? Thank you.